we can share that on the channel as well. Okay, yeah, so why don't we just take a look at exactly what you're trying to do and see if we can solve it. Someone wants to.
Should I just share my screen?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Oh, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Sorry. It's a new default in Zoom that I'm having to get used to. I'll have to see if I can change that globally. We should be able to now.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. All right, so going through, I think the first thing we want to do, this isn't the main thing, but like make answering this question mandatory.
Okay.
So just so that, yeah, you have to specify what kind of matter it is.
And right now, can you check both? I'm curious. Let's see.
I think you can, yeah.
All right. Yeah. But it's really only one, right?
Yeah. Oh, this was another thing. I don't know if this is part of, we don't know if this is part of our code or the overall mass access, but just the what is the first other party's name was a little, yeah, confusing. This is also, I think, one we wanted to like just make that require that they have to answer something.
And probably what you want are radio buttons, not checkboxes, right? Which maybe you're not sure what those are yet, but I think that's the answer for that too.
All right. All right, now this is, yeah, what was our big question. So we want to like, so say like it could theoretically there not be any alimony and child support, so they just click to move on, but still like the payment frequency page shows up. Okay. And then after that, the amount of payment shows up. So we want to like maybe make the payment frequency and amount of payment conditional on them saying yes and then specifying.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, this is some good stuff. Okay. We can keep going if there's other things we can see what we can hit.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't remember if there was any others.
Okay. So you got those to Joe and hide. That's great.
I think, yeah, that was it. These are all set that they're mandatory if you click yes or, yeah, that was it.
Okay. Yeah, let's go back to your playground now. And so what we're going to want to do is turn those questions into radio buttons. So let's scroll to the first one you wanted to change, where you said you wanted to make it mandatory. It'll be kind of the same pattern you're going to follow for the other one.
So yeah, right here.
Yeah. So Michael, what we're going to start out just by doing is we're trying to see how to turn this question, which are yes/no questions, into radio buttons. That's the first thing we're looking at here. Okay, so let's make a new code block underneath.
Underneath data type here?
No, we're going to make a whole new block. So a new line, and then with the 3 dashes at the beginning of the line. And it's going to be a code block, so code, colon, space, and then that vertical pipe. Perfect, yeah. Let's go ahead and copy in the 2 things. So complaint for contempt civil, yes. So copy that. Not the whole thing, just the variable name.
All right.
And one thing you can do is if you double click on it, it'll highlight the whole word, which is kind of handy. And then a quick shortcut for copying is Control-C. All right, so those are going to both be indented. Both of those lines. Let's leave that for now. We just wanted to remember what the variables were that we were trying to change. Okay. So now let's go back up to our field statement in 288, right where you are. Yeah. Let's make a new field underneath it. And it's going to be, let's make this a no label because the question's really already written in there. So put a space and the word no label, colon. And we're going to give this a new variable name. So this new variable is going to be like a combination of the two below.
All right.
And the code block is going to be used to copy the value from this question into those two checkbox questions, essentially. We'll start just by writing it out, and then it will make more sense, and feel free to ask questions too.
All right, so what am I writing out?
What would be a good variable name that captures this whole idea, whether the complaint is a civil or criminal matter?
Just like complaint for contempt.
So that doesn't really, it's a good start, but doesn't really tell us very much about what type of, what the variable's trying to capture, right? So that's like a good variable name is one where you look at it, you know right away, or at least you can figure out or puzzle out what it's trying to describe. So any other ideas from anybody else who's on the call? What might be a good name?
I was going to say, what about like civil or criminal complaint?
That sounds good to me. It makes it really clear what it's for.
All right.
So, and then this data type is going to be, we're going to make a new question. The data type for this is going to be radio. Radio are two exclusive questions, so you can't check both of them. Two or more, you can have more than two.
All right.
And they're not built into the wizard. So anytime you see like a couple checkboxes that you want to make exclusive to each other, this is the same thing that you're going to want to do.
All
right. So underneath this comes a choices statement. It's a new statement. It's going to be the same indent as data type. And underneath that is going to be a list of the options. So hit enter. Anybody guess how we're going to make this a list? You may or may not know, but just by analogy.
Is it just like tab and then dash like that?
Exactly, yeah.
All right. And then do I just plug in the two, like complaint for contempt civil and complaint for contempt criminal?
So here we're not actually this is important to figure out because a lot of people have that same intuition that you have right now. So we're not making a new variable here. This variable, civil or criminal complaint, is going to be a variable that has the value underneath as text. That will make more sense like over time probably. But right now, the important thing to know is just you're going to write what the person sees on the screen first.
All right.
So I think civil and criminal is what you had before, and I think that's pretty clear. After the end of it, I do usually like to put in something that will never change. And let me explain what I mean by that. So when you are writing out your choices, you can just include the part that the user sees on the screen. And that's fine until you translate it into other languages, or someone comes back and tweaks the language. That happens a lot. Like someone might want to add more details. And then suddenly you have to change it in two places because we're going to right away use this question to figure out what to do to build these two variables, right?
Yeah.
So we want to have a part that's visible on the screen that we can change and tweak to our heart's content, including translation. And we want a part that stays static that we can always compare the same value against. So here I might just put the word civil in lowercase after the colon on this line, and then criminal, and then colon, and then criminal in lowercase. And then we can just kind of test against the lowercase version and never have to worry about that changing.
You mean it like that?
Yeah. So what I want you to understand, which is confusing, is other places where we do that colon and then we write something in lowercase, it's a variable. Here it's not. When you choose civil, the variable is civil or criminal complaint, and it gets the value, the word civil or the word criminal. Once you run into certain kinds of bugs later or trying to understand it and you make a mistake the first time, because it's going to take some practice to get it right, that will be something to remember, and it may not have enough context yet to make sense. All right, so I think now we can delete these lines 294 through 297.
All right.
And now we have to fill in something here. So let's do the first one together. And so we're going to define this to be something. So what's the first thing that we're going to put after this? We're trying to give this variable a value. So anyone remember how we do that in a code block? We're going to assign complaint for contempt civil yes to a new value. What should come first after the variable name? And that's yeah. Sorry, what was it?
It'd be like an equal sign.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So an equal sign. And then what do you think? Here, this is going to be a little trickier, but let's just think about what's the concept we're trying to get here. Let's just see if this makes sense to people. So what should be the concept? We don't have to figure out how to translate into code after that. What are we setting it the value of? When should this variable be true and when should it be false, I guess is a good way to answer, to rephrase that. I'll give you a hint, which it's in relation to this question we just wrote up here, right? So whether it's true or false should be related to this question.
So basically just like the question of whether they're hitting civil or criminal is what makes it true or false.
Yeah. And that may or may not be like immediately obvious, like how you would write that out. So first we're gonna write this variable name here, right? That's what we're testing. So that's the first thing let's write. Civil or criminal complaint. And then what we want this to be a true or false value. This one's going to be a true or false value here. So we're going to be doing the same kind of test that you do in an if statement. We're going to write here. So now we're doing a test for equality to a certain value. What would we do here? We use the single equal sign here for assignment. What comes here for testing the value of something?
Is that the two equal signs?
Yes, so then he has got it, yep. So double equal sign, and then what's going to be on the right-hand side of that double equal sign? This is civil for testing.
So if it's true, like if someone selects it, then you would do true?
Well, remember what I said here is that we're giving civil or criminal complaint is going to get a text value. It's not going to get a true or a false value. And what text would it get if they chose civil?
Would it be like civil in parentheses? Or not parentheses, quotations?
Yes, Michael's got it. Yep.
So just like that.
Yeah, Jason, you caught on exactly. Yeah, it's the lowercase civil because that's the one that's on the right-hand side of the parentheses. That's the value it really gets. This is just here is just the display part. So perfect. That's exactly what we want it to see, to look like. So let's do the next line now. All right, so this is the basic way that you transform a series of checkboxes into radio buttons. So yeah, this is great. This is going to be really helpful to a lot of people, I think.
Cool.
All right. And then the next thing that you had is let's just see how this changed what you see on the screen. So you could, if you just do a new save and run, it'll start at the beginning. That's one easy thing to do.
All right, cool.
Yep. And is this the question where you wanted it to have different follow-ups? No, this just goes right onto the form, right?
Yeah, the one we want to go, I'll pull it up again.
And Michael, this is answering the same questions that you had too, right? Or related questions? Okay, good. Yeah, because I want to make sure, I do have another call at 11:30, but I want to make sure to get to everybody's questions.
It was the alimony and child support. We want like, yeah, if they don't click yes here, payment frequency doesn't show up.
Okay. All right, so we don't have to actually change this question. We just have to change the follow-up. So let's go to that part of the code block. I think it's probably, if you search for interview order.
I think it was right here, yeah.
Okay. Oh, these are follow-up questions that you have right there. Okay, but there are other follow-up questions that come on a different screen.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's search for interview order. Okay, yeah. So where can you find the reference to that question here? The first one? I think it's this one, order other parties was ordered to pay yes. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then these are the follow-up questions you only want to show sometime, right? The next two lines.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is kind of like the second exercise that we did where Matt was doing the Teaching Tuesday. Anybody have a guess what we're gonna, the basic idea that we should do? We can just kind of say it in plain words what we're trying to do.
Like we're trying to only have these show up if the answer to this is yes.
Yes, that's right. So what kind of logic are we going to use? If anyone, I mean, it's the keyword that we would use there.
Do we use like the show if?
Not show if, which I know that's something that can be tricky, is that there's different concepts that are similar in different parts. But here, this is in our code block. So we're not going to use show if, but if is the important part of that. So we're going to use just a regular plain if statement here. And does everybody kind of get what this code block is doing that we're in the middle of right now? We could scroll up a little bit because there's a comment that explains it. So maybe these lines will help. They might be a little bit too abstract. 576 and 577. I mean, I think the highlighted text here, right, might give you the biggest clue.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no tricks. I just wanted to make sure people are understand where we are in the file, what part we're changing right now. So what is this block for? What does it do?
Does it just keep an order of all the questions?
Yeah.
So if you moved lines around, would the questions show up in different spots?
Exactly.
Okay.
And the key here is like we're looking for a particular variable. we don't have to list all of the variables on each screen because asking for at least one of those will trigger the question being asked. So if we go back to the one that we wanted to change the order of a bit, first we're going to change here. We're going to change was ordered to pay yes. That's going to be a trigger for some logic happening. So at the beginning of that line, let's put the word if, then a space, and then at the end, just a colon. That's the syntax for an if statement. And I just want to point out one thing. What are we checking for if other party's 0 was ordered to pay yes? When would we ask the follow-up questions? What value would it have?
If that was true, like if they were ordered to pay?
Yeah. So we could write here, we could write the double equal sign and then the word true. But we don't have to because it's unnecessary when you're really just testing. This is already a true or false. Other parties was ordered to pay yes is already true or false. So there's no reason to write it's equal to true. If it's true, we're going to have the follow-up. If it's false, we don't do the follow-up. So that's kind of like a neater, it kind of reads a little bit more naturally, so it's a little easier to understand what's going on as well, I think, when you leave off the double equal sign true, because you can just kind of read it naturally across, like if other parties was ordered to pay. The yes is kind of redundant, but that's kind of an artifact of how we have the labeling happen. Okay, so now, in order to make these things happen only if this is true, all we have to do is indent the things that are optional. So we're going to indent line 589 and 590. In a code block like this, indentation is what you do to show it's part of the if statement. And that should be all we need to do, actually. This is the main thing that you're going to be doing, I think, is that kind of cleanup, like making radio buttons, making questions show and hide, depending on what the earlier answer was.
All right, see if it. All right, cool. Yeah, it skips them.
Nice.
Great. So I think you had one more radio button you were going to change, but maybe I'll let you do that on your own. And now you have a little head start for how to do the logic stuff.
All right, yeah, awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Michael, do you want to do some of this with your project too?
I have to go right now, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I have to run out the door in like 10 minutes. But I'm gonna try to just tweak this, and if I have any issues, maybe we can try to do this again.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I appreciate it.
Okay. Any other questions about what we did so far?
No, that actually helped a lot.
Okay. Great. Okay, well, I'll put this recording on the channel. Is it all right if I also put it on? I meant the Slack channel, but is it all right if I put it up on the YouTube channel too? I'm sure other people will find it helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks so much, guys.
All right,
Thank
awesome.
you.
Thanks for the help.
Thank you.
You're welcome.